The physical performance component of the firefighter examination is intended to be conducted indoors to allow for standardization of testing conditions for all candidates, without regard to weather or terrain. The one exception is the ladder climb. Due to the height requirement, it may be held indoors or outdoors. Designed to measure job-related abilities, the physical performance test consists of 3 separate events: a ladder climb, a darkened maze crawl, and the obstacle course. The obstacle course consists of a series of job-related activities that are performed continuously and consecutively. There will be no running during any portions of the physical performance test.
Stop! You're running. The exercise is terminated. Return to the start point.
But fast walking, as opposed to running, is acceptable. Because the obstacle course is timed from start to finish, it's important that candidates move as quickly as possible through the course, both when performing the events and moving between events. These activities are performed in a sequence that requires the candidate to perform job-related behaviors, including walking, lifting, dragging, and carrying various objects specific distances. Candidates will be required to wear a 40-pound vest while performing the obstacle course. The obstacle course event begins by placing the end of a 2.5-inch supply line hose over one shoulder and across the chest. At the command, "Ready, go,"
Ready, go.
the hose is dragged a distance of 75 feet. Upon crossing the finish line, the candidate should immediately drop the hose and proceed to the next event. Next, we focus on the hydrant, which has 2 outlets. A hydrant cap is loosely screwed onto one of the outlets. The candidate must unscrew the cap for that outlet and attach it on the other outlet to a hand-tight position. In the next part of the obstacle course, the candidate lifts a K-12 saw from its box and carries it 37.5 feet out and around the right side of a cone and returns the saw to the box from which it was originally taken. The candidate then raises the simulated fly of a 24-foot ladder. Using a 3/8-inch rope, the candidate pulls downward on the line in a controlled manner to raise a weight until it hits the top of the pulley, and upward to lower the weight. The use of gloves is optional. There are 2 acceptable styles in controlling the rope: hand over hand or palm over palm. The candidate then moves to and picks up the 50-pound high-rise pack and uses the shoulder strap or the hand grip to support the weight. There are several acceptable carrying positions for carrying the high-rise pack: along your side, over either shoulder, or over your head. In the next portion of the obstacle course, the candidate climbs and descends stairs while carrying the high-rise pack. Each climb and descent equals 1 cycle. The candidate must place a foot on each step and both feet on the ground at the completion of each cycle. The candidate completes 12 cycles
12.
before returning the high-rise pack to its original location on the floor. Now the candidate picks up the nozzle end of a 1 3/4-inch hose, which has been weighted to be equivalent to dragging a hose at a fire scene, drapes it over the shoulder and across the chest, and drags it out 62.5 feet along the carpet to and around the right side of the vertical stanchion, and then back to the starting point. The candidate may not carry any portion of the hose during this event. Upon crossing the finish line, the candidate should immediately drop the hose and move to the next event. Next, the candidate picks up a 40-pound fire extinguisher by the handle and carries it with one hand out 50 feet toward and around the right side of the cone and then back along the same path before replacing it where it was originally found. The candidate may not cradle the fire extinguisher or carry it two-handed or on the shoulder. Now, the candidate proceeds to the 165-pound mannequin. The candidate holds the mannequin by the two straps attached at the back of the neck, drags it 36 feet as the candidate walks backward along the carpet until the mannequin's feet cross the red-painted finish line. The test administrator will advise the candidate when the drag is completed. the candidate should immediately drop the straps and move to the next event. Next, the candidate grasps a simulated debris box by the two side handles. The candidate carries the 50-pound box out 37.5 feet to and around the right side of the cone and returns along the same path to the pedestal from which it was taken. The candidate may not carry the box by one handle. The candidate then moves to the finish line. Upon crossing the finish line, the obstacle course portion of the firefighter physical performance test is concluded. The next part of the physical performance test is the ladder climb. The purpose of the ladder climb is to determine the candidate's ability to ascend to height, perform work, and return to the ground unassisted and within a reasonable length of time. The candidate first puts on a safety harness. The examiner then hooks a safety line to the ring on the harness, and the candidate proceeds to the ladder. The candidate ascends the ladder, holding either the rails or the rungs, and stepping on each rung along the way, until both feet are standing on the rung at 18 feet above the ground. The candidate then rings the bell, suspended above his or her head, and returns to the ground. The first foot that touches the ground signifies completion of this exercise. Next is the third and final portion of the physical performance test, the darkened maze crawl. The purpose of this maze crawl is to determine the candidate's ability to traverse from point A to point B in a confined space and with no visual cues. There are several curtains along the interior of the course and several minor obstacles on the floor. The candidate must crawl to the far exit, but not at high speed. This completes the final section of the firefighter's entry-level physical performance test. We suggest that you prepare for the physical performance test through proper training and physical conditioning.